Hi everyone, my name is Patrick Akil, and for today's episode, I had Priyanka Vergadia on as a guest. She's a staff developer advocate over at Google, and she really leverages the power of visualization when it comes to explaining the content and the complexity they have. Really cool. I'll put the links to her social in the description below. And with that being said, enjoy the episode.
Beyond coding.
Not that big of a reader, so I haven't read a lot of books. I'm more visually
Same.
oriented. Really?
Yeah, me too. I never thought I would write a book.
Okay.
This has been a total surprise to even me, but it happened in such a natural way. Like, because I'm a visual learner and
Yeah.
a visual thinker, it's like I started doing some of these sketches as just passion for, like, I like to draw. This was COVID had just started, the pandemic was here,
Yeah.
and it's in 2020, right? And I was just like not traveling. Okay, how am I, like, just keeping myself sane was the point at the time. And I started drawing some of these sketches and and I just shared casually with some folks internally, and then
Yeah.
shared casually on social media, and people were like, this is great, can we do more of these? And just the feedback that started coming in was like, we want to see more of these, and the internal teams got excited. So I started investing more time into it, did
Yeah.
a few more blogs and a few more sketches with them, started a GitHub repo, and the GitHub repo got like 3,000 some stars.
That's
and likes.
crazy.
It's like,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I've got something here for sure. and and people had started asking me, are you going to convert these into like a PDF or something? And I
Yeah.
was like, maybe I can do a book that is more like my kind, which I would potentially pick up because it's colorful and it doesn't have that much text.
Yeah.
I don't honestly just do books unless I have to. It's like you have to kind of read this book in order to, or like read this particular like 200 page of documentation
Yeah.
to kind of make this thing work. Sure, I'll read that, but but at the same time, it's like it's not a choice that I would make ever. So I got into the whole book thing with with like the other way around. Like I already had half of my sketches done when I decided I'm gonna
No
convert
way.
these into a book.
Yeah. I
Yeah, so it
love the
was,
natural progression there, right? And I think
yeah,
always energy creates energy. If people are excited about what you're doing, you're like, I'm gonna do more. Let's let's keep it going.
exactly. That's what it is. And I just was like, more and more, they were feeding that energy. At the same time, I was also like, if I thought about it from the very beginning to be like, I'm going to write a book,
Yeah,
that can be intimidating, right?
absolutely.
But because I was halfway there, because I knew what people are thinking about it, and it's helpful to people like certification, folks who are trying to get certifications were reaching out and saying, hey, I went through this as a review process to before I went and took the exam,
Yeah,
and this was very helpful that way. And I was just like, getting all this feedback, which if I didn't have that and I sat down and started to write a book, it would have been so hard, because
yeah,
anyways, writing a book is hard. However you slice it, it's a hard thing.
exactly. Yeah,
Right? So having this enthusiasm of like, okay, you know what? Most people want this. So whatever energy I'm putting into it is well worth it.
yeah,
Knowing that is good for return on investment.
yeah, absolutely.
Because you're going to put in so much time. I spent about a year doing the whole thing from the start to finish,
Yeah,
and it was weekends and nights, and outside of whatever. Like but and there was point when I was like, okay, what did I get myself into? But there were, but
yeah,
those were the points where I would think about the people who would send me messages and be like, hey, I got a job, your book was your blogs are working great, and
yeah.
I could review the whole thing. It's like, okay, like it keeps you
Amazing.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so yeah.
I love that people give you that feedback, right? Because I think that is fuel for whatever you're doing. Feedback from actual people that love what you're doing. I think that's
Yeah,
one of the best feelings you can get, especially when you're creating
exactly.
content in that way.
Yeah, no. So totally, like I give credit for this book to exist
Yeah,
to the community, because it would have not happened if people didn't give me that feedback.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it's insane. I never think about, okay, let me write a book because it is such a humongous task. But to
it
be
is.
like,
Yeah,
okay, I actually already have quite a lot of stuff. People are very much interested. So then I think doing this was kind of more professionalizing what you were already doing anyway, right?
yeah,
Because a book is kind of,
yeah.
book sounds kind of legit compared to a GitHub repo with the sketches and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And yes, there were like things that are hard to do, like basically program managing the whole process,
Yeah,
like making sure you're meeting deadlines and working with the publisher to make sure like they their edits and then reviewing those edits and then going back and editing
yeah,
more. It is a little bit more than just publishing a blog, right? But all worth it if you know that the result is helpful to people. It's like there's no point writing a book if nobody's going to read it. That
yeah.
was my point. Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
That would be a shame. I I see so much comparison to kind of product development, right? Because
yeah,
writing a book or creating the book is a huge kind of step on a horizon. But the way you get
yeah,
there is starting small, incrementing, getting feedback. Are people actually going to use this or read this? It is
yeah,
so similar. And yet, still in organizations, we say, okay, this is where we're going to go. We're going to plan everything around it before validating, even if people are actually going to actually going to use
yeah,
this thing.
yeah. And that's kind of why I like the developer relations role,
Yeah.
because it's a great segue into what would from what you just said. Just like in developer relations, you can experiment. Like you have the room to do that. You can create demos that you feel passionate about,
Yeah.
using the technology that you are advocating, or other pieces of technology that kind of augment together to bring something to life. And this book is a great example of that. I started a project few months ago. You might have seen this, like the architecture diagramming tool,
Yeah.
where which was also kind of sort of like this. Like it started as a thought process of like, you know what, we need a visualization mechanism for our architectures, and then the other big thing is like, what if there were reference architectures in there? And the third big thing is, what if I could take some of these reference architectures and actually deploy them right from the architecture diagramming tool? So it was just like me thinking about this would visually be really appealing. And you're seeing a theme here, like from my visual thought process, like
Yeah.
all the things have to be visual. Can I reduce the number of words on this page?
I love it. I'm gonna be honest. I love that. Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how that whole like product started, which with just an idea of like, let's do a proof of concept, let's see how many people click on that button to deploy a pre-canned architecture.
Yeah.
And it was a great like analysis, or that's how you like going back into product development. um, Being in developer advocacy, you can kind of create a demo, but you can also polish it and even take it towards a direction of like keep polishing it, and it kind of becomes something that more than a few people want to use, and then that can be pitched as an idea somewhere else,
Yeah.
internally, or you show value of what has been done, and then and then like any product, that you ask for investments and funding and whatever else that needs to happen
Yeah.
to get it to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. What I've noticed with myself and kind of the, I mean, I'm creating this podcast, but what I had to let go was the concept of perfection, because
Yeah,
whatever you put out there is never going to be perfect. So I really had to be like, okay, I know in this episode we could have done better. I could have done better as a host. We kind of went on this segment for too long, stuff like that. And I can edit it
yeah,
down. I can really drill it down, but then it's going to lose some of the essence there. So
yeah,
a guest that I had on, Madi, he actually said progress over perfection. Like even as a
yeah,
software engineer, it's never going to be perfect. No one's going to tell you your software, Patrick. Oh, that is perfection. Oh no, because someone else
yeah,
is going to swing by and they're going to be like, well, actually, I would have done it like X, Y, and Z. So it's
yeah,
never going to
yeah.
be perfect. We really have to
It's
let go of that kind of notion of perfection.
Yeah, and it kind of like that concept of like uh, of not worrying about perfection and just continuing to move forward is just it applies everywhere, right?
Yeah.
In career building, in content building, in product building, like just iterate on what you've got. The tomorrow should be better than yesterday is the entire like thought process that I build content with. Like one of the things that we internally think about as a team of like content producers
Yeah.
at Google Cloud is this idea of your first pancake. And your first pancake is always not going to be perfect, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a pancake, let's
Yeah.
just say that, right? But then the whole point is that the next one's going to be better and the next one's going to be better. So it's like the whole idea of improvising on top of whatever you've been doing the previous day.
Yeah, I love the
Yeah.
pancake example. My girlfriend makes the most beautiful pancakes. I tried making her some. It wasn't the shape of a circle. It's just a blob, but it's my first pancake.
Exactly. And I did like um as like in the last, I think last year or year and a half ago, I'll
Yeah,
send you the link to this. I created um, a video, just a funny video off of this concept, trying to build a pancake, like create a pancake, like a real pancake, and recorded myself doing that, and I put it on my YouTube.
yeah,
No, nobody really watched it, but that was the idea behind it. Like, you know what? I'm gonna do it for the first time. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm
yeah.
trying it.
I love that. It's lead by example, right? If people can see
Yeah,
that it's actually everyone makes mistakes, and that kind of idea I have of a person, they're just human as well, right? We have the
yeah,
same thought processes. People do different things, but how you internalize it, if you can accept that not everyone's perfect, I think that's going to give you a head start in whatever you're doing.
yeah, yeah. I so firmly believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. Back to the kind of visualization. I'm very visual oriented as well. I
Yeah,
went to a talk. We do kind of knowledge sharings with Exebia. So people,
yeah.
whenever they have a cool topic, we have nights that we can actually share that. And one of the guys said, I went to a conference and I made visual sketch notes of a lot of talks. And then here's what they
Mm,
look like. And I was like, man, that was some impressive stuff because I could see through his notes visually what the talk
yeah.
was about. And I was like, this is so easy to digest. And also in my head, I was like, I could never do that because I suck at drawing. But I would definitely consume stuff like that. Why do you think
Yeah.
that visualization is so powerful in kind of the tech space?
I think just because in tech space we don't really see a lot of visualization. That's one of the reasons, right?
Yeah,
Because we are used to seeing a lot of documentation. We are used to assuming that these things are hard, and so we're just going to have to read a bunch of pages to figure this out. Most I got really good at it, being a customer engineer. So in front of customers, and I just basically explored this about myself, being in some of these customer facing roles, where in front of the customer you've got really like usually 30 minutes or so with
yeah,
somebody, and you need to explain the idea, why they should adopt a certain technology and how it would help them, things like that. A presentation could do the job, but in most cases, I was used to just doing a whiteboard.
mhm,
So if like given a choice, if I'm meeting a customer in person, which in most cases was, I would use the whiteboard to draw out how the request flow would look like,
yeah,
how you're going to implement this in your current scenario, and I would ask them questions on the fly, like, okay, what is the CDN you're using that sits here? What is the backend made of, right? And what's the language you're using? And I'll just start like writing all of that down, start making boxes, connect things, and I would challenge their approach in some cases.
yeah,
And those things visually go much better than if you were to present in a presentation, right?
yeah,
Because there's no way you can capture and keep the audience engaged, because you need to have them. in the mindset of like, okay, this is something that's being solved right now in front of my eyes, versus she's planned all of this. This
Like a
is a
cookie
deck.
cutter
We
thing.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, like a cookie cutter thing, right? So that's kind of where I've learned it, and I honed that art over time of like, um, you have to still plan. Like you have to still plan who you're talking to and what they currently already have. But then once you have all of that, just you build that confidence. Like I hear from people all the time that they're not confident to just walk up to a whiteboard and start drawing, because what if they, you know, didn't know what to ask, or
Yeah.
didn't know where the arrows go, or anything like that, right? But that confidence does come with time and with like repeating, repetitive, like, uh, get yourself in situations where you are drawing plans on the whiteboard. if
Yeah.
if you if you're not using a whiteboard, just like pen and paper, right? Get yourself in those situations, and you don't have to be an artist for that. You can just draw flowcharts, right?
Yeah.
And you can just have words in the boxes. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to have a character in it, or those types of things. So that's kind of where my entire like analysis of looking at what people interact with better
Yeah.
came from, like working directly with customers and committing to the fact that I'm not going to use a presentation. Let's just do this together on a whiteboard. And and from there, like that whole thought process of like getting, how do you make anything, um I I think we have to get used to the fact that, um, just a lot of documentation doesn't cut it anymore.
No.
We have we have everybody as humans have very little attention spans, and
Yeah.
it's reducing with every single day, right?
Exactly.
The amount of scroll, like, it's so hard for somebody to stop scrolling and look at the thing that you've shared. And if it is not attractive, it's something in our brains, right? I don't know the exact signs of it, but it's in our brains and the eyes that attract colors and movements, and not just squares
Yeah.
or or like words, right? So I that's the thing. And then I kept experimenting for the last 2 years or so in DevRel with different types of content, and seeing what works and what doesn't. And I really think the whole content space is a continuous experimentation of like, what, because it keeps changing too. Like
Yeah.
what works today will not work tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I like
Yeah.
is that like the visualization is an easier way for kind of shared understanding, right? If I'd send
Yeah.
you a text and I have a certain intention with that, it can so easily be misinterpreted, right? And a
Yeah.
conversation is way better. And a conversation with some sort of visualization, we can
Yeah.
collaborate, we can challenge each other, and we can actually be
Yeah.
like, huh, this image, all right, this fits in both of our heads. This is actually what we think reality is. If it
Yeah.
actually is that, we can figure that out later. But for now, we're
Yeah.
aligned, right? So we can talk about the same stuff. At this thing
Yeah.
here, does it make sense, yes or no? And have that dialogue directly.
I so agree. Yeah. Yeah. And that was the whole like, what, I lost your video.
Really?
Yeah.
I think I'm still here.
Okay, now I see you.
Okay.
All
Might
right.
might have been just an internet hiccup.
Okay. Yeah, I was just basically agreeing with what you were saying. So
Yeah, yeah, no worries. Let me see. You said DevRel and developer advocacy. Are those kind of the same things? Should I interpret those the same way?
oh yeah, so DevRel is sort of like the short form of developer relations, which
Okay.
is developer advocacy.
Yeah. I
It's like these terms are used interchangeably. So
yeah.
yeah.
It is kind of evolved, right? Because I think, and this was probably before my time, you had like product evangelist or like stuff like that. I still see them out
Hmm.
there. Then it's kind of
Yeah.
developer advocate. But I think the role, if I read it on LinkedIn, every time it's
Yeah.
different. It's like, okay, you do X, Y, and Z. In this company, do X, Y, and A, I guess. A, B, and C might have been
Yeah.
a better
Yeah.
analogy. But it's
Yeah.
whatever you interpret and how you want to create. If I if I would explain it, I guess.
That's exactly what it is. It's differently defined in different companies, and it also sits in different organizations in different companies.
Mm.
So like sometimes you find developer relations in marketing, sometimes you find them in their product, sometimes you find them in engineering. So it just kind of depends on which company you're at, and what is the expectation from a developer advocate. And
Yeah.
and that differs from like if you're more if but kind of like the core part of the job kind of stays the same, which is you're learning about a product or a technology, and you are kind of like this first interface, like first person who are like working with the product, testing it out, like after it's gone out of the engineering and the productization phase.
Yeah.
You're the customer zero, basically. You're the person, you're responsible for coming up with friction logs and how this can cause friction in the community in terms of like how can we make it faster, easier, better. Like you are the person who are working with the engineering and the product teams, to kind of give them that feedback as the first user of the product. And
Okay.
then you're also the person who are responsible to help like documentation team
Yeah.
and creating content for it to help developers who are going to be using this product for the first time. Because you've gone through using it yourself the first time,
Yeah.
now you can help the documentation team put together the documentation. That way you can create content that would help expedite the other developers' journey who are adopting the product. So
Yeah.
you're kind of like this liaison between the external consumers, developers, whoever those people are, with your engineering and product teams. That's
Interesting.
the general crux of it. Now, depending on which teams you're on, which company you're in, there might be a little bit more nuance to that,
Yeah.
but that stays, I think, common across most companies.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that aligns with kind of the image I have in my head as well. Do you do that
Yeah.
in kind of a team setting? Like, is there a team of DevRel or developer advocates? And how do you share knowledge kind of and collaborate within that team?
Yeah. So yes, there's team, and then there's there. So the way we are organized, it's a few different teams. So
Okay.
there's specialists for like databases, um, and then of all the different areas like networking and machine learning and sort of like that, like data analysis. So you'll find specialists who want to be specialists in those areas, and then we also have generalists who who know about, who cover the breadth, which kind of
Yeah.
is me and my team. We kind of like to cover the breadth from just our interest perspective as well.
Yeah.
Some people just choose the breadth, and some people choose the depth, and so that's kind of how the teams are usually, I've seen, organized as well.
Really cool.
And yeah, and it's like great. For me, I do get that question a lot, like generalist versus specialist. Why or how you decide which, from the career perspective, like which
Yeah.
direction you go in.
Yeah.
For me, like it was very easy because I get bored very fast. So it's like it's like if I
That's
picked a
relatable,
certain
actually. Yeah.
right, if I picked a certain thing and went deep in it, it's not that I cannot. It's more like I think I lose interest and energy as I start going too deep into one particular topic.
Yeah.
And I can maybe come back to it like 4 months after and then maybe go deeper into it. But
Yeah.
like if I keep going into one direction for too long, I just need a change like every few days, every few months or so,
Yeah.
which is why I think generalist works out great. There was this last year when I created like Vortex AI videos because I was like, you know what, I want to learn a little bit of machine learning and get myself into that for a few months. And
Yeah.
then I did that one series, did 10 videos with um, a lot of learning, a lot of demos to in order to create those videos. And then I was like, you know what, I'll take a break from machine learning. I'll do this other thing here.
Yeah.
I like that. I
Love
like
that.
that variety. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that you
Yeah.
can actually do that, right? Because specialist or generalist, right? Everyone has their preference, but to be able to do that in what you do on a day to day is really
Yeah.
cool. That you can be like, this thing, I actually don't really know anything about that. It's interesting. Let's figure it out,
Yeah.
and then you
Yeah.
can continue that cycle. Because I
Yeah.
think it's for me. I like the generalist role. I come from an operations background, so I needed to
Hmm.
know a little bit about everything. And
Yeah.
if I didn't know, it was interesting. And then if I did know, if I was adequate, not a specialist, I would be like, let's move on because I'm comfortable now, right? I think it's
Yeah.
easy if you're like, if this side is 0% and this side is 100%, it's easier to get like 50, 60, 70% of the way. That
Yeah.
last 30 is really hard. And
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, okay, I know that. I know that the 30% is hard. It's going to take me probably twice as long. So
Yeah.
let's move on to the next thing, right? And I think
Yeah.
within a team, especially in software development, you're like, okay, that guy knows the last 30%. All right, I have a question. Let's figure it out together. And then you can
Yeah.
be effective in whatever you're doing.
Yeah. So I totally agree.
Yeah, I can imagine. Do people have that consciously, you think, also within your team? Do they know if their aptitude is more towards generalist or specialist?
Yeah, most of my team is like that, with an intentional desire to stay generalists.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing I know this probably because I also have this. You don't know everything, right? Do you also get the room to just try things out and learn and learn from people?
Yeah, that is the best part about, especially the team I am and the
Yeah,
culture in Google in general, and also developer advocacy. So all of these things combined, like it gives you the room to try different ideas. So the content experimentation that I think I touched on earlier in our chat was all about that. Like I created a few Instagram reels, like with our Google Cloud team a few months ago. That
yeah,
was a part of an experimentation. We were just like, let's see how this goes. If it doesn't go well, we won't do it, or
yeah,
won't invest in it now, or stuff like that. So getting the room to try that stuff, and and having the not having the pressure of, like, because not everything would perform the way, sometimes either you expected it to perform,
yeah,
or just, things change. Reading the audience, it's all about learning, like what the audience expects, and what they don't, and also on which platform do they expect what. So you have to continuously try, and the team is set up to allow that space to do that, which is nice. And there are lots of things that lots of content ideas that have not seen the that have not, gone out, just because they just didn't they we tried them and they just didn't
yeah,
work out the way we thought they would. And but having that space is amazing to try.
yeah. I think that is also what keeps us going, right? Kind of the unknown and being able to experiment. We don't know if
Yeah.
this is actually gonna work. Let's try it out and let's figure
Yeah.
it out, right? Having the
Yeah.
room and kind of the playground oh, to do kind of whatever you want, I think is really cool to have. Have
Yeah.
you ever tried something and in the back of your mind was like, okay, this is probably not gonna work, or this is actually not gonna work, and then it just blew up, or it actually got a lot of reach in that way?
Yeah, okay. So, architecting with Google Cloud, this is a video series that I started, I think a little bit like last year, I think
Yeah.
2021. And, usually like interview setup type things haven't performed that well traditionally. And I keep seeing that stuff,
Okay.
like, um, not podcasts, but like the actual interviews on
Yeah.
hosted, like, YouTube videos. So I wasn't very like, I did the research, looked at a bunch of different interview style shows on YouTube, um, to see, like, to talk myself into not doing it, basically.
I know that feeling. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then And then I was like, you know what? I will give it a try.
That's really cool. Yeah.
and the first few sorry.
No worries. Take a sip.
Um first few videos we did, um they did exceptionally better than what we thought they would.
Goes like that too
I
often. Yeah.
I literally thought it would be like maybe 2,000 views on a video. I would have been happy with that because based on my research, that would have been around the ballpark of what usually people see.
Yeah.
But we ended up seeing the first video was at like 12K or something in the first week. And I was like,
Really good.
great, okay. And
Yeah.
then the next few I did one with Pokemon Go that blew up. Um, and then I kept doing them because it was doing really well,
Yeah.
and we're
Snowballs.
continuing. Yeah, and then we did one with Uber that's I think got like close to 100K now, which
Yeah.
is amazing. So given that every other episode is catching on, it's also like when you do these architecture type things, it's like how relevant or how relevant is it to a broader set of audience, right?
Yeah.
It's also dependent on that. So some episodes do really well, and some are in the average mark. But that has been a series that has surprised me just because I had very low expectations with it.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, it's what you do with it, right? Pokemon Go is a great example. A lot of people know what it is.
Yeah,
When it came out, it blew up.
exactly.
I was
Yeah,
walking around with my phone. So then to
yeah,
take that and to make a technical kind of architecture video about that, I haven't seen the video, so I'm assuming you kind of did this.
yeah,
I think is very good because people have already that kind of notion and relation. They kind of know in their head what it is. So then a lot of
yeah.
questions pop up, which hopefully you would answer in that video.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what happened. Like, how does let's take a peek into the architecture of Pokemon Go, and then
Yeah,
similarly we did like let's take a peek into how Uber migrated their humongous database to Spanner, right?
yeah,
And those are like curiosity questions. So yeah, taking an angle that kind of appeals to a broader set of technical folks is has been the key to that one.
yeah, yeah. That makes sense. I mean, it
Yeah.
it kind of aligns with what you were saying earlier that right, our brains, we don't have really storage brains. Like we don't really we can't really memorize a lot of capacity, right? The internet has various amounts of information that would never fit in the brain that I have, let alone
Yeah.
like the brains of the people in this building, for example. What
Yeah.
we do have is smarts, I guess. Maybe innovation is a better way. We have a way of kind of digesting that information and turning it
Hmm.
into kind of bite-sized things and creating the essence of what the information
Yeah.
is there and conveying that to other people. For them is easier because you have this huge document, you create it into this little tiny bite-sized thing, and then you're like,
Yeah.
ha, this is it. And
This
that's
is it.
what I
Yeah.
personally love.
Yeah. No. Thank you for saying that, and that's exactly what how the book has been as well, and that's the feedback that I've gotten. It's like I read thousands and thousands of documentation pages
Mm.
to come up with these sketches, right?
Yeah,
When people say that this one sketch was enough for me to understand what BigQuery does,
yeah.
that's like
Yeah, two
great, like
thumbs up.
job done, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because hey, I saved somebody else from reading 200 pages, and they can read the other 400 now, which are more detailed and deeper, and they can skip through like the basic parts, which is
Yeah, yeah. I think the thing you just said, you don't give someone kind of the end result and expect them to go through every little detail and be like, okay, now I understand it. No, right? It's
yeah,
step by step. It's gradually. You start with the
yeah,
start, the basics, and then you go to the more advanced stuff.
yeah.
But a lot of software documentation is like, this is the advanced stuff. This is all of it. Get it.
Exactly. This is where you start, and it's like, okay, but that doesn't seem like that's where I need to start or should start. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. I mean, you
yeah,
mentioned earlier you did more, was it, I think the term was customer engineer, but
yeah,
that was, I think, before more of the DevRel developer advocacy role.
Yeah.
How did you actually transition? Like, how did you figure out, oh, this is what I want to do and this is what actually excites me?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a really good question. So um, I was a customer engineer working with customers directly, and I was building demos. Like I said, I was also doing. You froze.
Yeah, I think the screen froze. I can still hear you.
Okay.
Your audio
You
is
can
coming
still hear
through.
me. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Is the Zoom gone? I think we're reconnecting. Yeah.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
it is connected. Okay. Great. So yeah, customer engineer to developer relations. It was it was a natural transition, and here's how. Right, I was already doing customer presentations, demos. I being visual, like I said, I was doing these on whiteboards and was very passionate about just the art of presenting information in the way that people, whoever I'm presenting it to, can consume it better, right? And as I was doing that, I was realizing that I can maybe convert some of these things. I built a demo explicitly. Remember, I built a demo on for dialogue flow, using dialogue flow, a conversational experience for one of the customers, as a demo, and everybody, internally in the teams was like asking me for access to the demo, how to demo it to other people, and I was like, you know what? Let me just create a video
Yeah.
because because I don't want to have to go to all these meetings and present this thing myself.
That's really
So
smart.
let
Yeah.
me just create a video. So I approached, like, I could have just done the video myself, just recorded it in a scrappy way, but I
Yeah.
approached the developer relations team and I said, hey, I want to create this video, and because I want to do it for internal folks, I might as well just create it so that external people can also utilize it. So
Awesome.
so that it can go on Google Cloud Tech YouTube channel. And that was it. I just asked and I said, and they said, my manager at the time, he was like, great, yeah, you should create a series of videos on this topic. And I started creating a few videos and I was like, can I do a 20% with your team? Because I was enjoying the process. So it was like me realizing and understanding,
Yeah.
that this video creation is, and creating content in the video format was something that I was enjoying. I would have never figured that out if I didn't come across this situation of like, okay, let's share this with so many people, or how do I make this process efficient, and then coming to a realization that video could be great for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's kind of how it started. I did a 20% with the team, and then I said, you know what, this is looking good for at least a few years. I think I can do this, and I'm enjoying it. I would like to transition. And then I'd give internal interviews to kind of transition into developer advocacy. But that was sort of a natural progression. But it
Yeah.
it again, like, comes down to, like, when people ask me, like, how do my previous transition from, like, I was the first job for me was software engineer and test, and then I transitioned
Okay.
to customer engineering, and same way, like, I all the transitions in career have just been open to trying something new,
Yeah.
and just welcoming of the opportunities that come your way, and then realizing what you like as well, and what you're doing, what's working for you too. Like,
Yeah.
just create at that time, if I just created the video and moved on, that could have been one output, right? One outcome of that. But I created the video and then I analyzed that I think I really liked this, right?
Nice.
And that's like, that realization is important. And I kind of stress this a lot to like early career, mid career. I think it's important to keep trying different things to understand what you're passionate about, because you might not know what you're passionate about
Yeah.
until you've encountered something that you felt like, this is the thing I was missing, right? Like,
Exactly.
that's kind of how I stumbled on developer advocacy, honestly, and it's been great since then.
Yeah. Yeah. I love
And it's
hearing
not
that.
good. and it doesn't like you have to be open to like it, the fact that what you love today you might not love tomorrow, and that's okay. That's It's just like part of growing yourself
Yeah.
and growing your career in, it's like one step at a time.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely
Yeah,
agree with that. I like having it go organically, right? I love the way
yeah,
that you said I could have just made that one video and that was it. Or even you could have just gone to all the meetings and explained it in person and never created
yeah,
that video, right? But I
yeah,
think throughout your career, you will have several opportunities. First of all, you need to be able to see if it is an opportunity, or you need to be
yeah,
able to create the opportunity yourself, right? Actually reach out, network, be like, is this an option? Or if it's
yeah,
not an option and you really want it, really create that option. I
yeah,
hear lots of people that say, in our organization, in my organization, doesn't work like that. Okay, we don't have that. It's never going to be there. And I'm like, I think if you can, and if you actually put in the effort, you can create a lot of stuff in
yeah.
whichever organization, in whatever you want to do. You have options.
You always have options. That's how, like,
Exactly.
we're aligning so much on this stuff. Yes, 100%. It's like if you want to actually do something, you always have options.
Yeah.
You can either create them on your team, you can create opportunities like the one that I mentioned, like 20% with another team, offer to help somebody. Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't take anything.
Easy
Offer
enough.
to help somebody. Yeah.
Yeah.
And get yourself experience of whatever it is that you're interested in by just saying, hey, I'm gonna do this for you.
Yeah. Let's do it together. I love
Get
doing
to,
that.
yeah, yeah,
But I mean, for me, it was the same, right? I didn't know I wanted to be a software engineer. I didn't know what I wanted to do at all. So I chose kind
yeah,
of a really broad kind of start. And then in there, I was like, this is what I want to do. And then I went
yeah,
there. I made it
yeah,
happen. And then the
yeah,
same for kind of the podcasting thing. It was an idea. It started out really small, and now it has snowballed. And I love having conversations because what they do is they allow me to reflect, right? In my
yes,
career, sometimes I've had conversations and they really made me reflect. And after that, if you have like a growth curve, I grew more than I would have had otherwise
yeah,
without that conversation, right?
yeah,
I'm sorry, and this is going to sound cheesy, but the developer advocacy role sounds really interesting to me. Like
yeah,
I could so see myself do that in a few years or like as a next career step,
yeah,
because it does align with my personal interest. I just haven't actually tried it out. I mean, this is
yeah,
a variant of it, but this is like 5% of what I actually do.
right,
But
yeah,
it's small steps, right? And then it snowballs. I love that
exactly.
we have the room to do that. I love that we have the playing field, and there's so many options. It's actually quite a lot that you can actually do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, create the space and create the room for yourself to do it, and you can.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Is it so? I'm wondering about Google itself. Is it easy to transition from kind of team to team?
Yeah, it's not, it's designed so you can easily transition. There are, like, if you're moving from a certain role to a certain role, there might be interviews that you have to take, which is
Yeah,
what I had to do from transitioning from customer engineer to developer advocacy. I had like 4 interviews doing that, but it depends on like where you're transitioning from and where you're transitioning into. Sometimes you can bypass the interview by like showing the evidence of like the work that you might have been already doing that aligns with that team.
yeah,
So it kind of depends on where you're transitioning from which role into which role, and but all of that is encouraged to like get you into a spot where you enjoy doing what you're doing.
yeah, yeah. That's really cool. What I think the biggest driver for me has always been is curiosity, right?
Yeah,
Really a drive through curiosity. People ask me, okay, how do you stay motivated? It's a hard question because I don't really think of motivation intrinsic and it doesn't really make sense. For me, it's
yeah,
that thing looks interesting. It's like a diamond. It's nice and shiny. Let me go see what that is about, and then I go that
yeah,
direction. It's always been like that, and I think it's what allowed me to thrive a lot as a software developer myself. What do you
yeah.
think a lot of other aspects could be? Because I think curiosity is the biggest one that you can have.
That is definitely one of the biggest ones that I have. Like, I'm the same way. I get motivated through curiosity. I
Yeah.
don't like just get motivated. It's like, okay, today, oh, everybody's talking about this.
Yeah.
Like, oh, when Web3 came about, right? Everybody on the internet was like just talking about Web3, and I was like, okay, I'm not getting interested just yet. Like,
Yeah.
it's just not pulling me in, right? And when that happens, when I get pulled into it, like that curiosity, that is the day when I'm like, okay, now getting inside out, understanding what this means, and maybe create a demo, learn it as much as however I can. That yeah, that is what motivates me. Like, it's not even about like because people are talking about it, I'm gonna get interested. No. It's like it has to happen one day. It's like I'm gonna wake up one day and be like, I want to know more about Web3, but that day
Yeah.
hasn't come yet.
No, and you can't plan for it either. It just needs to
You
happen.
can't plan for it either.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So yeah, it's like it has been curiosity for me as well. And I don't think I can put anything on above curiosity for my motivation.
Yeah, yeah, same here. What
Yeah.
what does
Yeah.
happen with me, and I'm still figuring this one out, is when I go down the rabbit hole, I'm like, "Ooh, what about this? Ooh, oh, what about that?" And sometimes I go all over the place, and then I'm like, "Wait, wait, wait, wait. We were here with a
Yeah.
goal when we started out, and I have to go back because there's a lot,
Yeah.
right? And you can go from
That's a lot.
from one end to the other. But I think especially if you have that developer advocacy role, I've never had it, but you go into it with a certain goal, right?
With a
Explore
goal.
for X,
Yeah.
Y, and
Yeah.
Z. So then if
Yeah.
you spend too much time on other aspects, I think that would be one of my flaws, is you actually never actually get to that goal. You go at it slower, I guess. You do learn a lot,
Yeah.
probably.
You,
Um,
you do learn a lot, but it's
yeah,
like, yeah, with this role particularly, like you have the intention of like, okay, I want to create two blogs that are one at this level and the other one at say 300 level. One, the first one is 101, second at 201,
yeah,
third at 301 level. You know, like how deep you got to get into the topic to be able to talk intelligently at the 301 level, right?
yeah,
And so there's like there is the curiosity aspect of like you're learning something new and you can go in different directions. I would create demos and play with a project and then decide, okay, this is what I want to say in blog 2, or this is what I want to say in the third blog, and this is more advanced, so maybe just leave it out.
yeah,
And like those decisions are made while I'm wandering around with like either demo or documentation or reading more about it or playing more with it. but but you're right, like there is still a definition of like what the output is going to be and what I'm working towards.
yeah,
So all that investigation and all that learning is like in a certain direction, and if you are deterring from that direction, you know that you should come back because you have this goal in mind of like writing a few things at the end of this. So I think that that definitely helps. You know, if you're doing this in software engineering, maybe like set yourself up with a little bit of a soft goalpost sort of thing,
yeah.
and that might be helpful. But yeah, it's very tempting to just wander off and try and like do tangential things and figure out those tangents and then maybe come back and converge.
Yeah. I think the more you do it, right, the more you do it with a goal in mind, probably the better you get at it. Because at some point
The
you're
better
like,
you get at it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
step out of yourself and be like, whoa, 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 this is actually not what we're here for, and then you can
Yeah,
actually
even with the
backtrack.
book. Yeah, I agree. Even with the book, like that's the exact same thing that happened. Like the initial um, sketches, I took a lot longer, even though I was reading the same amount of documentation and trying this same, experimenting with the products the same way. It was much longer to create the sketches.
Yeah,
And then as I was creating more and more of these, getting further, like after like 20 of these, like I had a process and I could create the sketches in like reading everything, digesting the content in like a day, and then creating the sketch the next day with like a plan of how it would all look and everything. So it does get better as you just do more of it.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But since this is something I've been wondering, you and I are very visual oriented, I guess,
Yeah.
and I have a way of consuming content. But I'm really curious, how do you consume content? Like, how do you either learn or keep up to date, or gain that knowledge to be able to convey that to other people?
I have to engage with the content. So even if it is text, um, I usually don't start with the documentation. That's my
Okay,
thing. Like I just start with
interesting.
the playing around.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just go in blind and like whatever product, whatever new thing it is, I just experiment with it. I try it, I click on buttons, I see what happens, and and I have no fear of breaking stuff. So
yeah, exactly.
so that's kind of how that's how I because again, like it goes back to the visualization aspect. If
Yeah,
I can see it, if I can, even with the code, like if I, even if it's like an SDK, I would still play with it first before I read the documentation for it, and then if I get stuck, I go into the documentation and figure out why am I stuck. Same way if it's a UI product, even better, right? Because I love visuals, so I can just use the UI stuff to get myself familiar with it. And then if I get stuck, or if I'm like, oh, I don't know what that exactly means,
yeah,
then I would go to the documentation and be like, okay, that's what they want me to put here. And they start making sense from there. So I do things a little bit backwards. I read the documentation on an as needed basis, and then
yeah,
and yeah, and just try things out myself. And then obviously once I've done like gone to a certain level with that experimentation, I'm gonna naturally get curious about all the different things. So then I would go
yeah.
read the documentation even further. But I need the push to go read the documentation. If I started off with the documentation, I would never finish the thing.
No,
So,
I
so that's my process.
yeah, I know I keep saying this, but I do recognize myself in it, right? Not
Yeah.
even not even on a software level. We got like a closet we needed to build, and I was like, let's look at all the parts and let's look at how it would fit together. And my girlfriend's there with the
Yeah.
manual, like that's not what we're supposed to do. And I'm like,
No.
I'm already working on step 3, and she's like, but we're supposed to start at step 1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Exactly.
and
Yeah.
then
It's like I don't need a book.
yeah,
If it doesn't
exactly.
work, we'll come back to the book.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, for
Yeah.
software, it's exactly the same, right? If it's
That's
a new software as a service tool, I'm like, let's click around, let's see what actually is there. And then once
yeah.
I'm like, why isn't this there? Then I go to the documentation, and either there's a reason for it. I'm like, oh, this is actually there, and then
Yep.
I incorporate it. That's quite
Yeah.
funny,
So
actually.
true. Yeah. So true.
Uh, I think more and more I've started going to YouTube, which is weird because I'm already on YouTube. I already consume content there, just not
Yeah.
for technical stuff. But more and more, since I've realized visually I'm better at it, I go to YouTube because then people draw
Yeah.
me diagrams, they condense the content real quick. I love looking
Yeah.
at programming language explained in like 100 seconds. I'm like, exactly, that's what I want. Give me the
Yeah.
gist of it, and then
Just the
go
gist.
through
Yeah.
it.
And then if I'm more interested in it, there's obviously a lot of documentation, but yeah, give me the gist to begin with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I
Yeah.
love how this conversation flowed, kind of from
Yeah.
the power of
Me too.
visualization to more of the
Yeah.
developer relationships aspect. Is there
Yeah.
anything that's missing that you still wanted to share?
No, I think we covered a lot of good stuff, and it just flowed on its own, which was perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually what we try and do, and hopefully it succeeds in the end as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
Priyanka Vergadia, everyone. I'm gonna put the links to her socials in the description below, so check her out. Also check out the book. I actually have it under the table here. We talked about that in the pre-show. And thank you for
I have
listening.
it right there.
Yeah, exactly. It's there as well. And
Yeah.
thank you for listening. We'll see you on the next one.